What if I told you that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one screaming for attention, but the quiet one in the corner, the one who's been pushed too far too often? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about human psychology will completely change the way you see empaths forever. Jung believed that every individual carries both light and shadow within them, but in the misunderstood empath, this inner duality burns brighter than most people can handle. Society tends to confuse empathy with weakness, assuming that someone who feels deeply must be easy to break, but Jung's research revealed something much more complex and far more terrifying, because the empath isn't weak, they're holding back. You see, the human psyche operates on layers. According to Jung, the persona, our public mask, often hides our true nature. But what happens when someone with extraordinary emotional intelligence removes that mask? That's where the shadow self emerges. And what Jung uncovered about their shadow will shock you. Empaths live in what Jung called the tension of opposites. They feel pain intensely, yet they manage to contain it. They detect deception, yet continue to hope for the best in people. This isn't naive, it's what Jung called the transcendent function, the rare ability to hold contradictory truths at the same time. But this ability comes at a cost, and for narcissists, it's a silent warning, because the empath who has endured betrayal, manipulation, and emotional violence doesn't stay naive, they evolve. Jung said that the most psychologically integrated people are those who faced their own shadow and emerged whole. Empaths go through this crucible far earlier and more violently than most. Their emotional wounds force them to grow faster, deeper, and more consciously. They don't just understand light, they've met darkness face to face and survived it. That's where narcissists make their fatal mistake. They see the empath's kindness and assume it means weakness. They believe they can control someone so emotionally open, but what Jung discovered is that those who lead with love often possess the strongest psychological architecture. Why? Because they had no choice. They had to build it brick by brick just to make it through, and this is where everything shifts. Jung's theory of individuation teaches that every person must one day confront their true, authentic self. For most people, the process is slow, if it ever happens at all, but for the empath, betrayal accelerates the journey. Pain becomes a catalyst for psychological rebirth. This is the part most people never see coming. Emotional sensitivity isn't fragility, it's advanced pattern recognition. Empaths don't just feel emotions, they decode them, they analyze them. They remember every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal. Not with bitterness, but with clarity. They store it all, and once enough of that data accumulates, something happens, what Jung called the emergence of the self. At that point, nothing can stop them. Carl Jung observed that the most powerful transformations happen not in safety, but in crisis. He called it an antiadroia, the idea that when something is pushed to its extreme, it turns into its opposite. So the empath who was endlessly patient becomes immovable. The one who gave without limits becomes highly selective. The one who forgave everything begins to walk away for good. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Jung taught that true strength is born when we integrate our shadow, when we stop denying our boundaries and start honoring them. The empath doesn't lose their heart, they gain a spine. And here's what will truly blow your mind: once the empath awakens to their power, they don't just heal themselves, they change everything around them. The narcissist's games no longer work, the emotional traps no longer land there.
True growth occurs when men embrace their sensitivity and women recognize their strength, relating as whole individuals rather than halves. This leads to more meaningful touch, truer conversations, and comfortable silences, as there's no longer an expectation for the other to fill an internal void. Desire of the soul. The video challenges the common perception of desire as purely physical, arguing that it is also a desire of the soul, a deep longing for connection and fusion. Jung viewed desire not as mundane but as a language, a symbol, a call from within for one soul to meet another. This explains why desire can be sparked by a look, a presence, or a conversation, going beyond mere physical attraction to touch one's identity and sensitivity. For this deeper desire to flourish, the environment must be emotionally safe, allowing vulnerability without judgment. When intimacy becomes an obligation, or criticism is constant, desire retreats, waiting for the heart to feel free again. Jung saw desire as a bridge between the conscious and unconscious, connecting what is known with what is not yet understood. What is often called e-chemistry is the unconscious recognizing a possibility for healing, growth, and transformation. Desire also demands presence. Without it, the body may follow a routine, but the soul, feeling unseen, withdraws. Therefore, true, deep desire should be listened to, as it carries messages beyond immediate pleasure, indicating opportunities for living or healing. Asterisk complexes and healing. The video addresses a complexes, a Jungian terms for sensitive points or unhealed ancient wounds in the psyche, e.g., rejection, abandonment, unresolved love, past criticism. These complexes enter relationships and manifest, often leading individuals to blame others for reactions that originate internally. In intimacy, where vulnerability is high, these pains surface as lack of desire, insecurity, fear of surrender, criticism, resistance, or silence. Understanding complexes is presented as a path to liberation, allowing individuals to identify the source of their reactions and respond with consciousness rather than automatically reacting. This process, though difficult, leads to true transformation, as healing internal wounds changes the nature of the love offered and received. It allows for clearer perception of the other, fostering connection based on choice rather than need. Asterisk the shadow. The video discusses the shadow, the avoided part of oneself containing anger, envy, jealousy, laziness, pride, and fears of not being loved, betrayed, or sufficient. The shadow is not inherently bad but represents hidden feelings, desires, and reactions deemed unacceptable. Despite attempts to hide it, the shadow manifests in constant criticism, control, subtle manipulation, sudden coldness, or unacknowledged desires. The more it's denied, the stronger it becomes, creating unresolved conflicts and unspoken judgments in relationships. Jung believed that what is not brought to consciousness becomes destiny, meaning unacknowledged aspects of oneself are projected onto others. Accepting and looking at the shadow, recognizing one's own limits, initiates a process of internal honesty, transforming relationships. It allows individuals to stop projecting onto their partners, communicate more clearly, and show their true selves, making apologies and forgiveness easier. Recognizing the partner's shadow fosters acceptance and a willingness to grow together, even through discomfort. The shadow, when acknowledged, becomes a path to self-knowledge and healing. Asterisk individuation and true love. The video challenges the idea of love as finding a missing half, presenting Jung's view that true love occurs when two wholes meet. This process of becoming whole is called individuation, an internal journey of self-knowledge, recognizing one's true self beyond inherited roles, societal expectations, and traumas. Individuation profoundly impacts how one loves. Without self-knowledge, individuals may mold themselves to others' expectations, losing touch with their own desires. In contrast, individuation leads to conscious choices in relationships, seeking a partner to walk alongside, not to be saved by. This mature love respects the other's timing, allows for saying a no without guilt and a yes without self-annihilation, and is rooted in the encounter of two souls building themselves, not trying to fix each other. True relationships, according to Jung, challenge individuals to grow, which involves letting go of fears, expectations, and illusions. Love becomes a mirror, revealing areas needing courage, listening, and truth. As one becomes more self-aware, the other gains freedom, as the demand for them to fulfill needs diminishes, opening space for accepting the other as they are. Love, in this sense, is allowing the other to individuate as well, walking side by side with presence, without clinging or suffocating. True connection is found in encountering the other, not losing oneself in them. The power of silence and listening. The video emphasizes that silence also communicates, often more profoundly than words, especially in intimacy. While communication is essential, there's a subtle space where silence is equally or more important. True, present listening. Jung believed that often, what is needed is not an answer but acceptance. Someone who can simply be there, listening without correcting, interrupting, or rushing. This kind of listening heals, not by fixing, but by accompanying. In relationships, this sacred listening extends to simple moments, perceiving what is unsaid behind gestures, looks, or fatigue. True silence is not absence but tranquil presence, being beside the other without needing to fill the space with words, holding a hand, or looking into their eyes to convey safety. This rare silence demands trust and a willingness to face discomfort, as it can reveal hidden truths or confirm that nothing needs to be done but to simply be present. In intimacy, listening means creating internal space for the other to exist without judgment or attempts to change them. This also applies to listening to oneself, as the body and soul often speak, but are ignored. Intimacy begins with internal listening. Jung believed the unconscious constantly speaks through dreams, sensations, and discomforts, but listening requires silence, not indifference, but full attention. When this silence enters a relationship, it transforms touch, gaze, and even arguments, infusing everything with more listening, presence, and intention, forming the basis of real intimacy, symbolic death, and rebirth in relationships. The video addresses difficult moments in relationships where the connection seems lost. Jung's concept of a symbolic death is introduced, not a physical death, but an internal one, the death of what no longer serves, of the old self within the relationship. This death is painful, involving the loss of expectations, illusions, and dreams for the partner and the relation. When a relationship faces such a profound crisis, it can either die or be reborn. If both partners lack the courage to face this internal death, the relationship stagnates. But with courage, what seems like an end can be a new beginning, like a caterpillar dissolving to become a butterfly. Transformation occurs in the silence of this symbolic death, as defenses fall, masks are dropped, and true selves, with their pains, fears, and limits, are confronted. At this point, love moves beyond idealization to become more real and profound, acceptance of oneself and the other, embracing imperfections and life's flow. Jung saw this transformation as part of the individuation process for both individuals and the couple. It requires courage, humility, and patience, but it is where a new light can emerge, a connection based on genuine respect and true presence, not fleeting desire or idealization. This love, born after symbolic death, is stronger not because it's perfect, but because it's authentic. Love as a journey of consciousness. The video concludes by stating that love is not a destination or a straight line, but a journey of discoveries, challenges, falls, and rises. Jung showed that loving is, above all, a process of consciousness, a constant invitation to grow, know oneself better, and be more authentic. While each relationship is unique, true love universally demands presence for the other, for oneself, and for everything that happens in between, for silence and sound, light and shadow. This presence arises from accepting one's imperfections, mistakes, and the need to reinvent oneself. Love is dynamic, requiring courage to look inward, take emotional responsibility, and allow the other to be themselves. It also invites liberation from expectations, judgments, and comparisons, surrendering to the moment and what is real. In this space, true intimacy flourishes. Ultimately, love, according to Jung, is a path of individuation for both individuals in the relationship. It's an invitation not to lose oneself trying to be what the other wants, but to find oneself by being who one truly is. When this happens, love becomes a shared journey, a constant learning, a dance where two hearts beat together, respecting each other's time, space, and essence. This journey is ongoing, transforming love to be deeper, truer, and freer day by day.